Welcome, everybody, to another edition of The Teams ahead of our round 20 clash against the D's on what I now call the Saints Sunday slot. 3:15 this time at Marvel Stadium. A big shout out, as always, to our sponsors of this segment, Southside Pizzas down at Moorabbin. If you haven't already, please make sure you get down there. Maybe you can grab yourself a quick slice before tonight's game or a afternoon snack ahead of our game on Sunday. But hopefully you're at Marvel Stadium to watch the game. Before we get stuck into it and discuss the teams, might do a bit of a recap over last weekend's match against the Cats down at the Cattery. Unfortunately, it wasn't the result we wanted, but probably the one we expected. Welcome once again to Evan, and welcome back to Woody. Thanks for joining us, and might get you to kick off with your takeaways from the weekend.
Yeah, you kind of nailed it a little bit with what I expected to see in some regards in terms of overall kind of result. A little bit frustrating with the start, right? Because I think if we kind of held up that momentum that they got there and then sort of that other sort of bracket in that third quarter, then yeah, we might have gone a fair bit closer to winning it. But that's a young side. That's what happens at these sort of times a year when one team's fighting for a top four spot and one team's not. So, yeah, sad, but somewhat expected.
Yeah, I'd agree across all points, particularly that start there. I think we lost it in the first 5 minutes and the last 5 minutes in a way. So, bit disappointing that they got away to that lead. And I don't think we got a centre clearance until we put the kids in the middle there. So, there's a bit of something in that. We didn't quite take our chances. But I feel kind of similar to how I did at the end of the Collingwood game, where at three-quarter time, if it ended there, I'm like, that's a good fight against a top four side. And then the game just goes for an extra 20 minutes and suddenly we lose by, 5 or 6 goals. So not quite able to stick it out for the whole game against these sides, but not the kind of game you ask for wholesale changes. So there's a bit of good and bad.
Yeah, definitely. And I definitely feel that frustration and the highs and lows of the game, because you sort of, 1 minute I'm thinking, geez, this is going to blow out to 10 goals here. So then when it is 5 goals, you're like, oh, I'll probably take that. But then there's moments where you're like, seriously, come on. And there's glimpses there with the young kids. And I thought at times we really stuck it to them with our pressure and really competed well. I even thought Boxall really looked promising and not out of place. Obviously still a lot to learn, but yeah, some positive signs. But I think just losing 5 or 6 in a row now, I think that frustration sets in. But then you have to remember, we're playing the Cats down in Geelong, so there were sort of still a lot of positives to take away. But I can also see why supporters are now getting a bit frustrated, and I think now's the time for the tide to turn. I think Jake touched on it a little bit during the week, but we're sort of past this run of really tricky games where you can call them honourable losses. I think, we're past that now. And for mine, I think this might be a bit of a discussion point where you both sit and where everyone else sits in terms of, do we want to, I don't want to call it tank, but, do we want to lose these games to get the better pick, or is winning more important? I think that's a good little discussion point. But before we get there, I will discuss the teams. We've got them here. As always, we've got the extended bench with this Sunday Arvo. I won't touch on that too much. I think everyone knows it's frustrating, but nothing too out of the blue there, with obviously Darcy Wilson being the forced out. I'll probably just touch on, I think during the game, I think a lot of people thought that he was subbed due to form, which myself included, but it looks like he was concussed. So might get your thoughts on that as well. Like if at the time you thought he was getting subbed for other reasons, and then also looking at who we've brought in with Angus McLennan, Ari Shoemaker, Lance Collard and Zach Jones making the extended bench. And we'll get to Melbourne's in a second, but I'll touch on your thoughts with those ins and outs.
Yeah, I mean, starting with Darcy, I remember seeing the hit at the time and thinking, oh, that's a bit iffy. And then I think it was a solid 5 or 10 minutes later that they kind of took him off and took him out. So I remember kind of getting past that thought and just kind of thinking, oh, he must be fine. Replays didn't say anything, that sort of stuff. And then, yeah, all of a sudden they're like, oh, Darcy's out. And I'm like, oh, he probably got concussed. So I kind of expected as much. I didn't think it was form so much. He wasn't carving it up, but he wasn't doing terribly either. So, yeah, sad to see him out. Hopefully he's fine. Comes back with a little bit of authority, because obviously people in the news are talking about him a little bit. And yeah, just he can put some of the queries to bed.
Yeah, I can't say I saw that impact. So not that I'm glad that he's injured, but I'm glad it wasn't form, because I thought he brought some of the better pressure across the board. His movement was really good, and I think it was being utilized a lot better. So I'm glad to hear, at least after seeing some of those articles about how he's sort of fallen out of favor a little bit, that it's not just that. Whatever level of young player problems there are in the background. I think, yeah, you mentioned it before, Woody, really hoping the ins are either Collard or Shoei, because there's no real need to go with Jones at this point. Got to get one of the kids through there. And then looking at the D's list, I can half confirm my good mate is a big D supporter, and doesn't reckon that Adams or Cully will come in for their debut game. Nothing on the socials. And it's become a bit of a good read at the moment, that you can tell if they're actually going to be playing or if they're that extended bench, because they'll make a big fuss about it somewhere on the website. So you'd reckon Sparrow and Petty coming in for that sort of mix and bolster that back line a bit for them?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Obviously, them losing May, regardless of their sort of appeal, he'd miss anyway with that concussion protocol. So that is a big out for them, and I think it's a pretty good one for us, if I'm honest. He's pretty solid down there in many ways. So, yeah, handy out there, unfortunate sort of situation, and kind of a controversial one there as well, which I won't really go too far into. But I do agree that I would like to see Ari come in. I think it's time for him to get another stint, and I think it kind of makes sense with Wilson going out as well. It's not maybe a like for like in terms of height and things, but I think it's a nice one to sort of replace. And moving on to the midfield, a little bit to take away. Competitive at times and then not, but probably, again, not unexpected, and not as disappointed as I've been in the past with the midfield. I think they've put through quite a good run together. I do think we really miss Garcia. I think he would have loved being out there on the weekend. I reckon it was his type of game, and really unfortunate that he's got injured at this time. Really liked his footy the last few weeks, so miss seeing him. I don't think we can go past we have to bring him up every week, but every week he gets better and better, and I think he's just solidified playing in the midfield, and that's Naz. Another bloody awesome game. He's just a ripper, and some of his kicks to our forwards, particularly that one to Sharman, I think, that just brought back memories from, like, I'd say a decade or so ago now. It's been a while since we've seen anything like that, and our forward line, I think that, they'll just be loving that if they can get Naz in the middle. And then I also just wanted to touch on Windy as well. I feel like he's really found himself a position there on the wing, and he's just growing week by week. And I think I touched on it a little bit last week, that they're now the two that we really want to re-sign ASAP. But again, Woody, if you tune in, you're probably used to every Saints fan. It's just the discussion point every hour of every day. So I think everyone's getting a little bit sick of it, but the only way to stop that is for Naz to sign. But I think, we're all done with that, so we can just keep talking about how good he is. So feel free to elaborate on that and anything else you picked up on the weekend, and anything else you sort of want to see us bring to the table against the D's.
Yeah, I mean, definitely kind of think Sean Maker might be the best like for like for the options if we are just having the one change. In terms of Naz, I didn't get the video out this week, so I've got a whole script over here of things that he did. So, I mean, 5 shots on goal, 2 goals, 2. That breakaway from the tap. It's going to sound weird, but the only player that it really reminded me of is Jack Stephen back in the day. Just used to do that sort of stuff, just shark that tap and just break away with pace. So, it's been at least 10 years since we've had somebody like that, in my opinion. And the other one that I wanted to give a shout out in the video, but I was too sick to get it all done, was Naz. No, not Naz Hall. What am I talking about? Max Hall. He wasn't having a big one until that last quarter. Had like 10 disposals and got to 21. Got, what was it? A bunch of inside 50s towards the end, a few rebound 50s. He got 289 of his 346 meters gained. So he was a gun, and just want to see him keep going and doing what he's doing. Otherwise, hopefully we see a bit of better results this week. I mean, it's a lot more changes from them. They don't have the kind of duo we've already discussed May, but they also don't have Lever in. It's going to be maybe something to discuss more in Oppo view, but it's going to be an interesting sort of lineup.
I think I'll jump in with Max Hall because I think this entire panel is our favorite sort of player, at least coming through this year. I definitely felt like watching the first half there were a number of times where I just saw him in really open space and really good positioning, and he just wasn't utilized. And in that last quarter, it wasn't necessarily that he was getting his own ball, but they were finally using him, and he makes the most of it every time. So I'd really like them to pay more attention to where he's at, because it's always the right place. But definitely feel like Naz, he's just got to be that permanent midfield role, especially we've got Sinclair there. It's great having the 2 halfbacks, but he's proven, Naz this is, that midfield role is where he can get the most scoring damage done. And I truly think I haven't been the most positive on our midfield this year, but it's got to be Naz, Windy rotating through 2 of the main spots, and then McRae and Steele swap out that 3rd slot, because I just feel like we're too slow and we're too bombing when both McRae and Steele are in there. They're not necessarily winning all the clearances, and when they do, it's a waste. Whereas Naz comes straight through, he sharks that ball, and it's not just a clearance game now. It's so much off turnover and speed of ball, and he's just so effective there on his own boot, and also finding marks like Mitchie's. So give him that space for 4 weeks, give him the contract for 5 years, and move on from there.
Give him a life contract. Isn't that what they did with like the Bulls or something? Chicago's like, doesn't Jordan still get paid from them?
Probably.
I'd give Naz whatever he wants. That was crazy. And I agree. The only thing I think Windy only had about 10% or so. I'd have to double check. I was in the midst of all the sickness when I was going through those numbers, but he only had about 10% sort of center clearances, center bounce attendances. So, and I remember Max Hall got a center clearance at the end as well, so he got a bit of time there. So wouldn't hate to see him get some more time on ball. I think these guys that are just good with ball, we want them delivering it in the most important positions, and that's getting it that last kick into the forward line. I mean, I can't remember the last time we had a midfielder that had 5 shots on goal, let alone whatever Hall could potentially do if he's given some time there. So it's a good one.
Yeah, just crazy. And I just had to bring up Chris's comment quickly there about him being in Brownlow contention. And I definitely agree. If we'd won a few more games, he'd be right up there, which is really exciting. And hopefully in the next couple of years when he sticks around, he is in that sort of discussion, because he is being talked about as at least top 3 in the comp at the moment, which is, really exciting. And really glad you brought up Max Hall, because his last quarter really was awesome. And in particular, he had another really good kick to Sharman, who finished that one off as well. So seeing some really nice passages of play, which is a glimpse into the future, I suppose, and really exciting. But like I said, it also gets really frustrating when we make some really silly basic skill errors and and sort of undo all our really good work at times. So it'd be really nice when we can start gelling and play more consistent footy and more of that really good, exciting, quality footy. I did want to touch on a bit of a funny comment here from Kenny, a little bit left field, probably just because, you know, we're all done with the Zach Jones inclusion, but not a bad little take, but don't know if he quite has the disposal of Naz. In saying that, we know that Naz can cough it up from time to time, but is excused when he's getting his hands on it that much. But thought I'd throw that one out there just as a bit of a left field sort of comment there.
Yeah, I mean, not. Sorry, go. I was just gonna say not the not what I would have expected, but I do like Zachy Jones. If we think that's the best option, I'll back the coaches in.
But I was feeling that maybe if we had this composure of like an Adelaide or something, where we're just looking for, you know, little additions for a winning list. But right at the moment, the way we're looking, get Hasty back there, you know, get Showy if you need to, sort of thing. We've got younger options rather than, you know, the one where you need a win in the next 2 years.
Yep.
Yeah, probably both fair comments there. And Kenny's on fire now because I'm going to bring up another one that he's come up with. Wanted to get your take with Max Heath. A lot bigger challenge for him on the weekend, and I thought it kind of showed at times. He got caught out sort of being a little bit slow with decision making at times, but I'd be keen to persist with him and just see what he's got. I do also, though, think that Dodson's making his case, perhaps not so much on the weekend. I don't think anyone really stood out from memory, but
did we play?
Did we play or have a bye or something? Yeah, well, there you go. I was like, why have I not seen any? Yeah, there you go. We didn't play. It makes it hard. But yeah, I'd probably persist with Moose for now. But yeah, definitely had his challenges on the weekend, which is to be expected. Coming up against a side like the Cats, but really up against it again this weekend, going ahead with the likes of Gawn. So, yeah, sort of wanted to get your thoughts in the middle there. Do you sort of want to see that Ruck combination continue, or do you think just play him as a forward, especially with May out, like Kenny's touched on? Yeah, what do you sort of think his best role is ahead of this week's game?
Well, I liked Moose's game quite a bit. Personally, the only thing I think he didn't do well was trust himself. In the sense that there was a moment, I think he got a centre clearance anyway, but there was a moment where he could have gotten a centre clearance in the centre, and he was about to bend down to pick up the ball, and then I think he saw Steely trying to come through and pick it up, so he just stopped and let Steele go, and it still kind of tapped it forward a few times, and it ended up in another jump ball. So there was that moment where I'm like, oh, mate, just pick that up. Like, nobody's going to bring you to ground. They're not strong enough. Like, just get it and run. Like, you're Mumford from back in the day, man. Like, nobody can take you down. So just take it. And he had a similar moment inside 50 where he bent down, picked up the ball. Honestly, if he's just looked at goal, nobody's taken him down. He had all the time to snap that if he wanted it. So I think he just needs to learn to trust himself in those sort of moments. Realize that he's not just a big body at VFL, he's a big body at AFL. Nobody's taking him down. And I think he did reasonable in terms of the hit out splits. I think he got 5 to advantage. I believe we won the hit outs to advantage in general. So, I mean, I didn't mind his game at all. I'd keep playing him as is. I actually think there's arguments to suggest he might be better than Marshall in the middle. I don't mind him at all. I just keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah, I think apart from that mental space, he's AFL ready, which maybe some of the other young rucks aren't. And as I sort of mentioned earlier, I'm pretty sure it was Moose's first centre bounce attendance, where from memory it was like Darcy Wilson, Windy, and Naz with Heath in the ruck. It was just a really young mix, and it was the first one we won. So I think he's competing well. He's ready for it. Just needs to be in the right space. And as a forward, I think he's important as well, because we are coming up against a pretty limited backline due to those injuries and issues. So I reckon he's a good marking force there. The main thing I spotted this week with our forward line, with him being there, was that we finally started getting a few more of those marks inside 50. We're up to 16 rather than under 10 for most of the year. Obviously, we didn't make the most of that because some of our set shot kicking we've mentioned before, but we were still, we were actually getting those marks, getting those set shots, which is something we've had to really force throughout the year. And I reckon he's at least part of that in how he affects the defenders. So with these, yeah.
Just to add on to that, one thing that I was going to say in the video too was that I think we got 8 contested marks for the game, and Maxie Heath was the only person that got 2 of them from memory. So, I think he does pretty good in contesting aerially, where we've lacked that all year.
Yeah, and he's just the right size for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you've definitely touched on some positive signs there for sure, and probably a good little segue into the forward line discussion, which, it's unfortunate that he couldn't convert his opportunity, speaking of the set shots there. But, I do think there was some positive signs, and I think he does straighten us up down there. So that's why I definitely want to persist with the 2 ruck option. I also noted as well that we had 5 players kick 2 goals. So it was just a really nice, even spread. We didn't sort of rely on anyone. Obviously, we didn't get the job done, but, I think kicking 82 points, I think it was, down there is pretty decent, really, considering where we're at and where they're at. I probably would take that, if I'm honest. Obviously, you want Geelong to be scoring less, but that's just the reality. But yeah, what was your take with our forward line? What were your likes and dislikes from the weekend, and what can we bring against the Ds, who are a little bit undermanned?
Well, this is we discussed before the video that we might put in opportunities for yourselves in the chat to hear out something, because we've got less to talk about as the year's ending. So I wanted to throw it to you guys. What do you think? Where do you think St Kilda sits in terms of percentage of intercepts that are intercept marks in the league?
Oh.
And chat, you can jump in as well.
So this is opposition. How many of their intercepts are coming from marks rather than ground ball gets?
Yeah.
Or I reckon it's high, because I'm seeing very clearly a lot of games against even your Richmonds, your Geelongs, Adelaides, where they're just flying across pack marks and we're not being able to smash them. So I reckon we're bottom 4 for most intercept marks against us.
You could even say we'd be the worst in that regard.
No.
No. We have 27.76% of intercepts taken from intercept marks, which is worst in the league. Now, I don't think it's significantly worse from memory. A little bit. We're about 2% worse than Sydney. But yeah, the average is 23.63%. So definitely a little bit that could be worked on there in terms of getting the ball to ground. And that would bring me to my second stat here, guys. So we've obviously got pressure acts, and we all know defensive half pressure acts. In terms of forward half pressure acts, what do you think St Kilda sits in terms of the league?
Oh, I'd be saying that's pretty low as well, because it's been one of my frustrations, but maybe you're going to surprise me, but
it's, again, not the best number. So whether we have the 3rd worst in percentage in that regard as well. So we have over 50% of our pressure acts coming from the defensive half at 50.23. Which, 3rd highest in that regard, which is some positives, but it's the drop off in the forward half where we sit particularly behind. So I'll just pull that up again. In terms of forward half pressure acts, we sit 2nd last at 129.6 per match. So it's one of the main things we need to work on, is get the ball to ground and then put pressure on once it gets to ground, because I think the defensive half is generally doing their job. They've probably got a bit more coming in than they'd like. We're definitely winning a little bit of the forward work, so I hope we can do that again against one of the sides that are better at that. But I mean, we've got an interesting defense against, this week. So if there's a week to kind of fix these stats and kind of make it shown what we could do longer term, this is the week to do it.
I'm going to throw out, I know I can't blame everything on the midfield, but without stats, I might throw out that a lot of our forward inside 50s feel rather shallow, or they're really, high long bombs. And it's probably easier for a Sam de Koning or a Tom Stewart to fly across the front of a pack when it's coming out of the midfield. So loop to loop. We definitely need a big key forward to bring it down, and we need more consistency with your Butlers and your Collards in order to keep that high pressure. But I reckon there's no small part of the types of forward entries that are actually getting there that are causing problems or giving the defenders best opportunities.
Yeah, some interesting takeaways, but definitely not surprised by the forward pressure acts. And even Corey saying, "What? We have them?" Yeah, exactly. I just wanted to touch on Jan's comment quickly too, just about Heath and what he's done for Owens and Sharman's game, because I don't think it's a coincidence that their last couple of weeks have been back to the standard that I want to see. So just quickly touch on that. Do you sort of agree? Have you liked what Owens and Sharman have brought the last couple of weeks? For me, I feel like they've been a little bit more lively and a bit more involved. What's your sort of take on that?
Yeah, I tend to agree, and I think it kind of comes down to Heath again. He's just too big to ignore, whereas Kilda, that we've had in that sort of role, probably could float off him and take those intercept marks that we were talking about. Whereas if Heath is just kind of getting to the right place, you're not going to be able to push him out of the way and then take the mark. So you're really focused on your opponent, which gives opportunity for Owens and Heath, Owens and Sharman to be the one that flies past and gets the mark. So, yeah, I think it comes down to that big body forward that we've been asking for all year.
Yeah, I think the best comparison in real time is what the Dockers did over the weekend as well. We don't quite have that forward line set up at the moment where you've got Tracy hitting a pack like he wants his money back or something. That's what Moose needs to be, that big solid body that's both hitting a pack or standing his ground. And then they were showing really great footage of what Patrick Voss was doing with that bag of 6 goals that he did. And they were just perfectly timed leads towards the ball. Like he knew the space, he knew the time, and he ran at it. And that's what Sharman is to me, and where he operates best is that lead up forward mark where, he's just outreaching his defender. That's where he gets possession for the goal. He's not, occasionally he'll sit up on top of a contested mark, but it's not where he needs to be. So when he's the first target and he's being told to hit packs, it's just never going to suit him the best compared to leading up towards a clean forward 50 entry.
Yeah, I sort of like that it allows at least one of them to play a bit further up the ground, particularly when we aren't strong with our contested marks. And at minimum, at least they bring the ball to ground. And I find that they're quite hard to mark against, if that makes sense. So they're very good at providing at least a 50-50 contest. And Owens has proven that he's quite good at earning himself a free kick as well. Like he definitely gets his opponent really worried. I think he's a lot stronger. I think he looks like a strong guy, but I think he's even stronger than he looks, if that makes sense. He's probably underrated in that area. So, happy for Heath to keep sort of playing in terms of at minimum. He gives these guys the opportunity to play more their style of game. And then we've had a few comments here, again from Jan and a couple of others, just regarding Henry. So here's another one I wanted to get your take on since he's returned from injury. How you think he's gone, areas for improvement. If you're seeing like Jan, if you agree with Jan that he is improving, or if you'd like to see a bit more from him, feel free to elaborate on what your thoughts are on Henry.
I still like him. I just think I've had to really change my perspective on him. He's playing this year as though he's a first year player. You know, he is building into the season, but as though this is his sixth game ever. I just did a double check because I remembered watching him at the Dockers and being like, this is a really exciting player. He's got 60 games. He's not playing like a 60 game player. He's playing like a 6 game player. So he's making progress, but he's undeniably behind where I thought he'd be when we picked him up with all the excitement around that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. The only thing I think I'd say is, I give him that bit of grace due to his injury, and slowly getting back to form and whatnot. I think the main thing I've liked is that the numbers that we were seeing at VFL level have translated into the same numbers at AFL level. Whereas, the first week we saw him come in, he just couldn't get anywhere near it. So I like that he's kind of finding his footing again. I don't know if he's fully up to proper health in where he'd want to be, but I think this gives him a really good basis to go into next year and hopefully come out a player that does look like they've played 60, 70 games.
Yeah, I sort of sit on like the same sort of page where I want to see more from him, but I'm also happy to keep persisting with him because I think he's got it. Even like last year, was it last year? It has to have been. He had some really exciting moments and, just looked like the X factor we were really looking for. So I think he's got it in him. He's just got to get back to knowing how to get himself into the game a bit more. And I think that'll come. I sort of don't know the extent of his injury and how much that's affected him. So hopefully week by week, he just gains a little bit of confidence in himself and his body and he gets back to his best because we definitely need him at his best. He really is an X factor type player that we need. So hopefully he can. I think we've probably dissected the forward line enough there. So we'll move on to the back line now. Might get you guys to just lead the way with your take with the back line and I guess what you're looking for, especially coming up against the Ds who I don't really think they have a sort of target forward there as such in terms of like a big, tall forward, a little bit like our forward line. What are you sort of thinking in terms of, I guess, matchups and how our back line's gone and going to go coming up against the Ds?
Well, I just wanted to ask one question. Is this the first week Kamanidi's been listed as a backman? Because I'm pretty sure it is.
Now that Kilda's not on the list, they're doing it right.
Look, I think the defensive trio should be able to hold up against Van Rooyen and Fritsch in terms of their kind of leading tools. Maybe you put Melksham in the leading category, but I don't know if we're really going to see that sort of lineup, but like we know that Naz is probably starting on ball. I think Keziah Pickett's probably going to do the same, to be honest. So it's a little bit, it's hard to read. I'm assuming we kind of end up having Hasty back in there, that sort of thing. But I don't know. It's a odd week. Is Hasty even listed? I'm looking for him. Yeah, okay, he's on the wing.
He's in the bench, but wing.
Yeah.
What? Odd.
Yeah, it's an odd lineup. I'm trying to mentally put players where I think they might be, but generally, I think provided we win the aerial contest, we should at least put up an even sort of keel in the ground contest. And I think we've got reasonable run from defence. So, win it from the guts if we can. But if not, hopefully we can start our movement from defence.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all those points in theory. And then it's just, can we do it in execution? Because I was worried about how we coped in the aerial battle last week. Just so few intercepts from a lot of our players. But I think there's no small part of that being you're up against the Coleman almost definite winner and a lot of tools. So it is hard to focus on moving off your player and getting the intercept mark when you're up against such good competition. Perhaps this week, Melksham's he's had a year of it. But Van Rooyen and Fritsch are really, up and down players, which we know all about. So hopefully we can get a few more intercepts. What I'm really concerned about back there, it might not have happened as many times as I remember, but I feel like Geelong was getting over the top of us a number of times where they had 2 or 3 players goal side, and I was standing there going, where are all our players? Like it genuinely looked like we had 2 or 3 fewer players on the ground there, because they just managed to blast through so fast. There's probably a bit of wingless stadium going on there, but with a team with Rivers and Cozzy and all sorts of quick plays through the middle, Chandler even, got to make sure they're not breaking out and getting offside on us, because they can score a lot of goals through that quick ground ball game.
Yeah, definitely agree. Just want to say that I think even the forward half pressure acts, as we mentioned before, that's a big highlight there, because I mean, if the defenders are expecting the ball to stay in the forward half, they are going to have mental lapses and be slightly out of position. So yeah, it's one of those ones we've got to have all cogs running smoothly.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. There were times where, same Evan, I was like, is there like a count we can do? Because why do they have so many free players and where are we? And it's so hard and frustrating on TV because you can't see what's going on with the big picture. But yeah, that was real frustrating. And then my other sort of take was obviously having Naz in the midfield kind of took away from that really sort of damaging play from the back line. At times I thought we were a bit stagnant, or just no one was really damaging. I mean, I think Sinclair had a high disposal count, but I just don't think it was one of his better games in terms of impact. So I just wanted to get your opinion on, I mean, obviously we agree that Naz goes in to the midfield, but I guess there's a cost there. And do you see anyone on our list at the moment sort of filling that void? Can Sinclair go back to being that player? Is it a Hasty? What do you think?
I'm hoping it's a Hasty. I think his ball usage has, at least to me, been very clearly a mental issue in his sort of 3 games in this stretch. So I'm hoping that if, Ross and the team could get around Hasty and be like, Naz is playing midfield time this week. This is your time to, we're expecting you to get that ball usage going. Obviously, he's listed on the wing. Never trust the list at this stage, but I'm hoping a little bit of positive pressure can get him moving as far as ball use goes.
Yeah, it's something I've been thinking about a bit. It's the only reason I didn't want to move Naz from into the midfield, because I just wasn't sure we'd have the same level of movement ability from the defensive half. And the only players that really jumped to mind that potentially could be in that role, obviously we've got Hasty in the side now, potentially McLennan, but I'd need to see a bit more than last time. But obviously he just had a bad game last time. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm tempted to say maybe we look at Wilson there, though I haven't seen a lot to suggest yet that he can do the running halfback role properly, but he has the attributes. The other player that I'd want to see develop in that role, obviously we want him to be a midfielder, but Travalia as well is one that I think could potentially go there. He's got some size. If he can start to fill out and use that, then that'd be a big positive. Obviously there's Schoenmaker, and I'm a big fan of him, but I actually want him out of defence. I want him higher up the ground and going into the forward line. So yeah, tough call. Not sure what to do there.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really want Schoenmaker in that role, but that was when we had Naz there. So now I feel like I'm a little bit more open to it because, Naz isn't your real sort of contested type player. Even sort of say the same with Wilson, where I don't think he's contested work in the back lines there yet, but potentially in the future we can see more of that. But yeah, I feel like no one, and it's very hard. I mean, we're talking about Naz here. We don't have someone ready to come in and be a top 5 player. So yeah,
I mean, we're talking about how Sinclair's struggling to kind of replicate that output. So I mean, it's not an easy cover. But I think we get so much from Naz in the midfield that we have to look at options, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree completely. We might move on now. Before we get to the Oppo view, our question of the week this week, it's from Evan. What have you got for us?
Well, I'm hoping we don't have the exact same answer. I reckon we might. But I thought if we can split the midfield, the forward line, and the defense, 1, 2, and 3, based on performance this year, where do we place them? So 1 is best, 3 is worst. If you say which area are we best at, I would imagine that we'd put defense as the back line as number 1, and then it's almost a bit of a toss up between the other two because we've seen a bit of promise in both. A big part for me is, are we counting Max Hall as a midfielder or as a forward? I'm going to count him as a forward and say at this stage with 5 games to go, I'm going to go backline number 1, forwards number 2, midfield number 3 as performance.
I feel like my answer's split in half, like depending on the time of year you ask.
Yeah, so early in the year, I was pretty happy with what the forwards were doing. I was very surprised by their efficiency inside 50, but we were just not getting it there enough. Then the efficiency dropped off, and it became a question. All right, is the midfield not doing their job enough? Are we getting locked in defense too much? Like, what's happening? Part of me, I'm almost not convinced that the back line should be first, but I feel silly saying that. I almost think the midfield is number 1, just because if you asked me last year what a premiership midfield looked like with St Kilda, I would have very much struggled to give you an answer. And I would have been basing it on 4 or 5 games from Pooh, the hope that McRae would come in as an All-Australian midfielder, the hope that Steele would maintain his level of excellence. And I think we really got challenged there this year and had to unearth new ways to do things. And I think we've consistently found ourselves in the last half of the year at least leveling out the midfield. And over the last 3 weeks, we've won a lot of clearance numbers, particularly. So I'm tempted to give them number 1, but I think the smart answer is backline 1, midfield 2, forward line 3. Just because I'm not sure that I'm fully convinced that Max Hall stays a forward, despite his excellent efforts there.
Yeah, probably agree with that way of thinking, and I feel like Naz pushing into the midfield probably bumps their score up, and maybe lowers the defense. So we're talking about one guy, but he's special. But yeah, I'd probably agree that the forward line's 3, and it's probably the fact that it's missing Max King as well. Like that on paper, they're not the most threatening forward line. I think they've done pretty well considering what we've got. But yeah, I think your take, Woody, on expectations from the midfield. I think, yeah, we've seen some positive signs, even like just glimpses, with your Garcias, his sort of last month of footy prior to his injury, really positive. Yeah, Max Hall, depending on where you look at where he's playing. And then, yeah, I guess how we've gone having someone like Filippo. And I mean, I know we're talking the guy up before. He's really done a hell of a lot, but his last month of footy last year was pretty impressive. And I think he's really been missed this year. And like you said, we were all sort of anticipating that he'd be playing a full year. So with all that sort of said, yeah, it is kind of hard to rank them because they've all got their pros and cons, but I'd probably have the midfield at 2, but it's a tough one.
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, and that leads us into our Oppo view now. We've touched on them a little bit, but we'll go a little bit more in depth. I guess highlighting your biggest concerns facing the D's in that lineup on Sunday.
I guess this will be kind of my other, mini question that I had a thought of. Last time we played the D's, obviously got the chocolates, which was great. Now, I think prior to, a month or so before that, Keziah Pickett had been kind of off the chain in the midfield. And to stop that, we sent Windy to him. Now, Windy played all right, but I think Windy's, last month or so since being removed of that tagging role and being given a lot more time outside of the guts on the wing and whatnot has been fairly effective. So, provided his kicking stays effective, that has been hit and miss. But yeah, I mean, I think personally, I'm interested in seeing how we go without Windy doing the tag. But I wanted to throw to you guys in the chat and see what your thoughts on whether Windy should tag Keziah again. He did, I think, get 5 clearances from about 10 possessions last time. So, I mean, he didn't get a lot of it, but when he got it, he was still quite effective. So I wonder, what do you think?
Yeah, I reckon Cozzy's going to be back with an absolute vengeance to a certain degree after the last performance. So I would almost come at it from a direction of, I reckon they're going to be prepping the whole time for a Windy tag and how can they, do better at a set of clearance? How can they be more accurate? How can they get more from Cozzy? And if instead we, do what the best teams are doing and drop the tagger, just focus on our own systems, perhaps it'll both throw a wrench in their reactionary plans and give us a slightly faster game style.
Yeah, it's really tricky because pros and cons. And I almost think if you don't put Windy on him at the start of the game, the D's like, oh, you beaut. But then I like Corey's theory here to have Naz versus Cozzy. That's pretty exciting in itself. But yeah, that makes things a bit more interesting because obviously Naz wasn't even sort of going through the midfield much, like especially not for an entire game. So that makes things interesting. But I probably almost lean towards putting Windy on him just because he did such a good job last time and don't want to think the D's have got it easy and we're just going to let Cozzy do what he likes. But I can definitely see both sides.
Yeah, I actually like the Naz to Cozzy idea. I think maybe flip between the two, try super offensive opponent versus super defensive opponent and see if Cozzy can handle the change of mentality. So yeah, interesting.
Nice. Yeah, I like it. I think I like that a lot, particularly because make him responsible, he's had a lot of games now where he's just been able to move between forward line and midfield as he has. Even looking again at the Pies Dockers game, they both decided to just go no tags, both systems, go for it. And, you have a player like Nick Dacos get 40 disposals, but they don't necessarily get the win. So there's give and take on both ways. I think with my view of the Ds, I'm mainly looking at their backline. Obviously, it's been depleted with Lever still TBC, May out either way, and they've got a few kids running through there. But watching a couple of their games, Disco Turner down there, he's looking really positive. A bit, I hesitate to say it, but better than Caminiti even down there as a first-year backman. Mainly in that I've seen him communicating with their backline in a leadership role. And we've got Wilkie to do that for the most part. But yeah, watching Disco do that, he led that group and in a way that seemed more positive than May, where he just yells at people. So I'd be really keen to make sure we don't let Bowie and Salem get any run off halfback and don't let their young sort of leaderless backline get a hold of the game, because if we can hit it really hard at the start and Moose can hit packs and Sharman can kick goals, then we just don't let them have a chance to settle. Whereas if Disco and McVee jump in there and get 4 intercepts at the start, they'll be like, screw these other guys. We don't need help. We're the new lot. And I don't want to see that. That sounds real bad.
Yeah, definitely. I guess Gorn is also a big one for me. You mentioned having Heath jump in there and throw his big body around. There was a bit of a rumor going around that the D's were into Heath last year. So, I mean, if there's any time to show them what they missed out on, now's the week to do it. Chuck Gorn around. He's getting a little bit older. He doesn't like to wrestle as much as he used to. So maybe it's time for Heath to, show us that big body. We've mentioned it a few times. Believe in yourself and, just push him out of the way.
Yeah, I feel like I'm always worried about Gorn, and I feel like no matter what sort of form he's in, Petrarca always turns it on against us. So he's another one who's one to watch for mine. He loves playing against us. But yeah, I watched the D's over the weekend, that Carlton game, and gosh, it was just a game of turnover, kick to kick at one point. So probably brings me into the key to winning, but I just think we can be a little bit similar, but I hope not as often as that. But I honestly think it's the team that turns it over the least that wins this game and takes their opportunities. So, that's probably making it really simplified. But, after watching their game on the weekend, they were like the king of turnover. So if we can clean up our game, keep the pressure on and force those turnovers and then make them pay at the same time, I think that goes a long way towards us winning. And that sort of brings my question that I touched on at the start of this was, do you want us to win this game? Are you happy losing these and essentially getting a better draft pick?
I'll go
I think
second.
I'm definitely I'm definitely in the camp now of having watched North Melbourne and West Coast Eagles lose so many games that even with all their new really talented draft picks coming through, they don't know how to win. They don't know how to hold on to a game and they don't know how to grab hold of it. I don't want to end up in that spot, even if that gives us another, 4th pick rather than a 6th one. So I want us to keep learning how to win, to teach our kids how to hold on to a game because, it's going to be a compromised draft either way. Might as well teach them how to win, like the Tigers players are going to have. They're going to be going into next year with 6 or 7 wins compared to North, who are struggling with, 5 wins in 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of that. I definitely see the value in the tried and true method. Look, part of me debates whether it's the right way to do it though, and I know it's different sports, and I know everything's, everything's fugazi until it's not. But I just think that perhaps you just need to take advantage of the system that you're given. And unfortunately, the system that we're given means that we get lower on the ladder, we get a better opportunity to get kids in, a more valued pick to trade if we want. It's a tough one. I don't think it's good to lose matches, but I also don't see a huge benefit in winning games that don't do much for you in the long term. And it's a similar problem we came to last year, where in that last game, it was, do we beat Carlton or not? And, I think a lot of us sat on the side of saying, well, yeah, we'd like to beat Carlton. But being a year later and in the same spot, I wonder if we just do the same thing, right? Like it feels like we've done the same thing forever and everybody agrees that we shouldn't do X, Y, and Z. And I don't know why. I don't know why everybody agrees that we shouldn't do it. It hasn't worked for certain clubs, but they've also been pretty bad at actually making it work. Like, they haven't drafted well. We've been drafting well. They haven't, gone out and gotten players. We're getting TDK. Like, it's one of those ones where I wonder if this is possibly our last chance at getting a good pick, because potentially we bounce soon and we never get access to a number 4 player that could be the best of our group of players that bounced. So that's my only thought against it. And I think to the Thunder in the NBA, despite there only be 5 players on the court, right? They consistently went to the draft until one day they were good. And now they've got a ton of extra capital and they might be good for a very, very long time. And then you see it in kind of academy systems in the EPL and whatnot, and the Spanish leagues, and they have this wonder kid come through and they like, uh-oh, Barcelona's going to be great again. And I just wonder if it really is worth it, especially being, a year to think on a similar position.
Yeah, and probably especially after last year when we got those wins, and now everyone likes to talk about how they cost us the draft order, and we ended up with a bit of a later pick and less of a player. But it is a hard one. For mine, I'm always leaning towards a win, especially for the young kids. I think it's really important, and even for players wanting to stick around and come to the club, having that winning culture and environment is really important. Probably where we sit at the moment, you could say it's a win-win if we win or lose, because if we win, we get that win. The likes of Tauru get to experience that winning feeling for the first time, and if we lose, well, yeah, we maintain that lower position on the ladder. So while we can't make finals, it's obviously not a good position to be in, but maybe it's a good position to be in from that aspect where you can see the positives from that argument, I guess. But
yeah,
if I was
the one club I want to stay below is just Carlton, because we're going to get TDK and then they're going to get an extra pick. So I just want to stay a little bit below that.
Yeah, that's probably a fair point. But yeah, I think we're due to. Like, we've had a lot of losses in a row, so it's time for mine to get a win on the board. I don't want to be sort of like what you said, Evan, with being like a North Melbourne who are now really struggling to know how to win, and it's a pretty horrible feeling for their supporters as well. So yeah, I'm on the winning team, if that makes sense. So I want to see a win. We might finish up now, because speaking of Carlton, hopefully we're about to witness them getting done again. So
we might need them to win. We might need them to win.
Yeah, I don't ever want to go for Carlton. So I think that's just. Maybe we'll go for a draw. Does that help? Probably not.
It's a catch-22 tonight, isn't it?
Yeah. But I'll get your tips and margins. Mine's a bit more realistic this week. I think we actually can win by that 20-point margin. So that's my tip. What are we all thinking? What do you think, Woody and Evan?
I think we win. Despite the fact that I might not 100% want us to do it, I think we get the win, and I think we do it comfortably. I'm going to say Saints by like just short of 40.
Oh, wow.
Did I make it back in time? Sorry, internet issues. Tips, I reckon a 2-goal win for us. Unless if they get more than 10 intercept marks, I will be slightly more worried. That's going to be my line for the week. We'll see if we can hold on to that. But I am confident, which is normally a problem. So I will still say Saints by 2 goals.
Stick with that. All right. Well, I'll finish with Corey's nice little comment here of Alex taking mark of the year, and I'm going to say maybe that's that ends up being the sealer. He gets his mark of the year, converts his opportunity in front of goal, gets his first goal, and his first win, and we finish
it
there
as well.
Nice.
So. Yeah, I'd like to see that too. So thanks as always to everybody for joining in and all your comments. It's been a really good discussion despite having several weeks of losses now. So thank you all. Thanks, Evan, once again, and welcome back to Woody. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And as always, go Saints. Hopefully you can all get down and support the boys on Sunday, 3:15.
Go Saints. Thanks, guys. Cheers.